What's up, people? I'm here with my boy, Agent O, and we are about to talk about this weird story that popped up where this one cat, you've probably seen him on the one Tekken Crash and some of the other Tekken related tournament shows. His name is Aris. I'm gonna say RSB because I can't pronounce his last name, but
Yeah, he's also got a website. He owns and runs the website avoidingthepuddle.com. He
oh,
does
okay.
podcasts and stuff on there.
Oh, that he owns that.
Yeah, I guess he runs the site.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I knew Mike Ross and Gootanks. I thought they started it or something like that. Oh no, that's not Avoiding the Puddle. That's Cross Counter. Avoiding the Puddle is the one with that law player. I forgot his name. Rip. You know what I'm talking about? It's like an Indian dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, but dude brought up how the fighting game community and sexual harassment and just misogynistic like speech and just harassing people based on their sexuality or their sex or race or whatever is all part of the scene. And I think that shit's bullshit, and so do the people who he was talking to, and especially the women. Unfortunately, on the show, it's called what is it? Cross Assault.
Yeah.
It was created to
to promote Tekken Cross or Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
Yeah. On that show, there are some girls that are part of Team Street Fighter, and there's some girls that are part of Team Tekken that he insulted pretty much, and he was just straight up like harassing the shit out of them. I mean, you could kind of tell he doesn't get any ass at all. He just is bold as fuck because, if he did, he wouldn't have any need to say this. He was like trying to guess this one girl's bust size or whatever, her bra size. And he did it on the spot while she was playing against another person, and she was on his team, which didn't make any sense. You know what I mean? This is his own teammate. Her screen name was.
He's one of the coaches in that.
Yeah,
show.
And he was a coach for Team Tekken, and he was talking shit to one of his fellow teammates. That's a girl, trying to talking about guessing her bust size and having her mud fight some other girl on the other team, and all kinds of fucked up shit while she's playing someone on Team Street Fighter. And it's like, what the fuck? And he's like, you want to be part of team, or you're part of Team Tekken, aren't you? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, well, this is how we roll. And he continues talking about her boobs and blah 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 blah. And it's like, what the fuck, dude? And he said some other shit. You can add to it.
Well, basically the conversation starts off between him and this guy named Rhea. And Rhea, I guess he's part of that whole esports movement thing that's going on. And basically, he wants to see the fighting game scene kind of like flourish and become bigger than it is.
Like evolve.
Like he wants to see it become even more mainstream than it already is now. I think it's pretty mainstream. It's not like people don't already know.
Well, it's mainstream.
There's a fighting game scene.
It's mainstream with 2 games.
Yeah,
really, and that's the problem. Or 1 game, really, because people still talk shit about Tekken, even though it's been around for almost as long as Street Fighter has.
Yeah.
So
it's I guess it's just one of those. He wants to expand it to include an even wider audience to gain more people, interested in in playing or being a part of that scene. And part of that, one way that he feels that, in order for it to reach that, that peak or is that there needs to be more respect between the participants in the scene. And I'm not above like trash talking while you're playing, because I don't personally do it, but if somebody else is doing it and that's what they feel they need to do in order to try and psych the other person out of their game, then so be it. If it works for them, great.
Yeah,
I would rather let my playing do the talking.
Exactly. Silence is golden. Put up or shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Because too many people online and too many people we fought in different places and tournaments and shit, they talk so much shit and then they're not really that nice on the stick at all.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's you have to. I mean, but you have to do it to a point. Like if it gets to a point where it's getting like overtly racial or overtly sexist, and I think there's a line that's crossed, and that was one of the things brought up during the conversation was that depending on where you go, there's certain certain arcades that you go to, certain people that kind of know where to take it, and that line differs and it blurs depending on depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
If to me, I think you should just cut it out completely. Like if there's no definitive, if there's no definitive like
a rule
or reasoning, then you just need to not do it.
True.
Because I mean, if you're the kind of person that like say if you're black and you deal with, there's times where you deal with racism in just your daily life, or you're a woman, you might be at work, you might get, sexist remarks made to you or whatnot, you don't want to like go and do something that you actually like and have to deal with that same crap there too.
Yeah, it's like what you were saying the other day when we don't really play against as many people online anymore because it's always these little racist country ass kids. Actually, it's not even always specifically country kids. It's like everybody.
Everywhere.
They always. I remember when I was over at my one friend. Remember Chris? We were at his house one time and we played. I was playing Gears with him and I played with other people online and all you hear is, "Are you some kind of nigger? Blah 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 blah. You play this game like a nigger." I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? Because I play shooters pretty tactical. I don't run off guns blazing because you got to conserve ammunition. So I try to double tap and pop everything in the head twice if I can, And dude was talking all kinds of shit. And at one point he said that to Chris. And I'm like, Chris is really white bread, like super white. And I didn't understand what the issue was. I'm like, how are you going to... How does one thing even have anything to do with the other? You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't say shit because I didn't have the headset on. Chris did. But when I was playing, we were trying to get to the same... It was a team deathmatch or team... what were we playing? Horde mode or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
And we're just trying to do, follow the objective. And we have people throwing shit at you. I remember playing Call of Duty before online at other friends' house. And all you hear is motherfucker this, motherfucker nigger this, honky this, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, what the fuck do these things have to do with how well you play the game? So I think the fact that it's being thrown around so freely at these supposed tournaments and shit and in arcades, it's bullshit. Because, I mean, sometimes at arcades, kids are there. Also, sometimes at arcades, you have women, too. A lot of times. Actually, now, more than back in the day when I was playing Street Fighter so much, there's more women. When I was playing in the 90s, early 90s, one of the first champs in the U.S. was a chick. And she was really fucking good. And she didn't use a girl character. I think she used, like, Guile or Dalsim. She used someone that was difficult to play as. But the point I was trying to get to anyway is that, like, when you do that shit, especially the sexist remarks aimed towards, women or people of color or, I don't know, whatever, but especially women. It's weird when they do that shit to women because they now make up a good portion of the, like, gaming communities, the various gaming communities. You know what I mean? They're a demographic. Sometimes they even try to make games geared towards women because it's a demographic that a lot of the companies want to get. And it's strange, too, that guys at these things will sit there and fucking like pick on these chicks, over and over and over and over to the point where they're kind of turning them away from a scene that kind of needs more diversity as far as players and stuff, I've seen some good girls Street Fighter players, actually some amazing female players that do things that the guys don't do. There's a little bit of like finesse. I've seen some female Tekken players that they do the same thing. They're a little bit more They've got the flash and the substance down to a science where the two work. They don't juggle all the time. They actually have finesse in their gameplay. They understand how to use a parry and how to, like, chess game the shit out of people. You know what I mean? Instead of just constantly doing what you've seen everyone else do. Like, they don't take the UFC approach. They take, like, the real martial artists approach, where they fight you from different zones. The moves were designed to do something besides juggle. And it seems like a lot of the men... They play it in a kind of like hammer, heavy-handed ass kind of way. Let me juggle you to death. So you just watch yourself die. But either way, it sucks that they're trying to kind of turn away those players that aren't just like them.
It's funny you mentioned that because the one guy that that was arguing with Aris, the Rhea guy, because he had said, like, he had basically said the same thing, like, Aris had said something along the lines of it would be completely like wrong on an almost ethical level to take away those aspects that make the fighting game scene what it's been for since the beginning, and then Rhea replies with something along the lines of, so you're saying that it's ethically okay to, basically alienate, women from the genre and from the scene. Like, you're saying it's okay. And I guess dude kind of took offense to that statement, even though what he said, he was pretty much putting the guy on blast for his own stupidity. He was making his statements like sound as stupid as it really was.
Yeah.
And it just boggles my mind that, like, it seems like the wrong people become get in these positions of like power and authority.
That's how it always is.
And they fuck it up for everyone.
Yeah, because I mean, when you think about fighting games are supposed to be kind of a offshoot or an extension of martial arts. But I've had this conversation with people on YouTube where they don't get that. Like when we were talking about this exact game, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and I said Tekken and Street Fighter are both based on martial arts, Whenever I mention the connection to true martial arts, people say stuff like, some guy put on one of the posts to the Street Fighter Cross Tekken thing, if you want real martial arts, you should play UFC. I was like, you don't even know what you're talking about, number one. Someone else said the martial arts, and they started talking about realism. Martial arts is punching and kicking. And then there's the style in which you do it, and then there's the philosophy that goes, that's behind all that shit. The game lacks the philosophy, but it carries over the physical movements that are all based in real martial arts. I don't care what game you play, except for maybe Blaze Blue and all those weird, offshoots that are all anime and the moves don't necessarily make sense. But Tekken and Street Fighter especially, the reason why they work so well is because they are almost 100% based in the martial arts. Like, your basic moves are real-world martial arts. You know what I mean? A kick is a kick, a punch is a punch. And the majority of the punches and kicks for almost all those characters come from one style or another. The part that they need to get is it's a sport, and there needs to be some type of respect, like you said, amongst players. And that doesn't carry over well because you have taunts and you have shit like that. And it's cool because there's different types of people that want to do this stuff. So some people don't have the discipline or the respect or like, the basis to like actually be a true martial artist. They want to be a fighter, and there's a difference.
Yeah, because I highly doubt this stuff goes on at the main events like Evo and
they won't tolerate that. They won't
tolerate that shit. So I don't see why where this guy's coming from, being that he's been to those events and he's participated in them.
Well, he also got stomped in those events.
Yeah, so I know, but
that's why he's talking that shit.
But it doesn't. To me, it just doesn't make sense. Like where he's coming from.
I think it's one of those situations where it's like any press is good press. And he happened to slip up because this time Capcom paid for that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was on a show sponsored by Capcom promoting their game being a jackass. And that was a time where he should have, learned to keep his mouth shut or choose his words or at least try to even be a respectful human being instead of a fat, hairy douchebag. A misogynistic douchebag trying to make fun of a chick who actually had skills. You know what I'm saying? Like,
or just argue your point
in a more intelligent way.
Yeah, like he ended up apologizing later on for it, but I think it was one of those things where like Capcom was like, you might lose your job over this, so you need to fix it. So he put out an apology saying that he didn't articulate his thoughts exactly the way he wanted to. But to me, I think what he said was how he exactly felt about it.
Yep. Because, I've been at places where I've heard people say, like the whole rape that bitch shit, when people beat a female character, you know what I'm saying? Like, or they don't do exactly what they want to do, and then they have to pay for it, you know what I'm saying? Like, say you're trying to do one of Chun's supers or something, and you screw up, you leave yourself open, and they punish you for it, and you hear people in the audience like, rape that bitch, It's like, I remember back in the day, like when I fought Chris Anderson at the one tournament that we had here, people said I raped him. And I was like, it was funny because I was like, yeah, I kind of did destroy him in that fight. But what if there were rape victims in the audience?
Yeah.
Then you just went into a situation where it's like, damn, you didn't mean it that way, but that's the nerve you hit, People just forget that they got to be responsible for some of the shit that comes out of their mouths. You can't just throw random shit out there. Like people on YouTube, everything is fake and gay. Well, you have YouTubers that are gay. And what difference does it make if the content that they upload on YouTube is actually quality? Then how does fake and gay even, like, now you need to cut a piece of it off, you know what I'm saying? Like, because it doesn't have any type of credence to the situation. So it's like, what was the point of that? But it's always like someone who's not realizing what they're saying and the weight that their words have. And they get away with it and they start this shit and then it keeps going and going and going and shit gets worse. Because I think that's why, if you notice, up to this point, we don't have any type of, there's no rules when you get online and you play games. But with this
depending on which ones you play, I mean, some of that stuff is monitored.
You're right. The EA Sports games, for the most part, it's monitored. For the most part. I know a lot of Xbox Live games are monitored to a point, but you still get a ton of racism and a ton of, like, lewd remarks and shit like that. And I'm not saying you got to always be 100% clean. I curse up a storm, and if someone tells me I can't curse on a game, I'm going to be like, sorry, fuck you. I'm going to go play something else. I mean, like, it's just some stuff is just, it goes without saying. But I try to at least have some type of respect for the person that I'm going up against. If I'm going to say something about them, it's going to pertain to how they play that game. I don't really give a shit what kind of person you are besides that, because the way that I'm meeting you, what's bringing me and you together, is the game. So I'm not going to judge you on anything else except for the game, because that's where we are at that moment. That's what's relevant. You know what I mean? If afterwards the person messages me and they talk and they give us a perspective or something like that, you know, and I get to know who they are as a person, maybe then I can judge them as a person. And I try not to even be that judgmental when it comes to people. Games, I'm fucking ridiculously judgmental. People, it depends. I give people chances. After they give me a reason not to respect them, and I don't respect them. You know what I mean? But if they're a cool person and they're respectable and they don't come at you sideways, then I'm like, cool. That's what needs to be done in these tournaments. Like, judge the person based on their skill. If they talk shit but can't do basic things, you need to let them have it. You know what I mean? But choose your words wisely. I mean, don't be throwing rape and gay and blah, blah, blah.
And that's part of the problem. Like, if you're going to trash talk, at least be, like, creative about it. Mm-hmm. Like, using the same old, you know, old lines, like, you know, call somebody a bitch or whatever. Like at least say something like, you know, you suck like a bunch of Eureka uprights or something like that. Be clever with it. Like, yeah, that to me would throw me off a bit more, because it's forcing me to think about what this guy just said while I'm trying to fight you in the game.
Well, part of the problem, though, is that unfortunately our society, especially the younger cats playing a lot of these games, they're part of a dumbed down society. And that's a whole nother argument and a whole nother story, but it's the truth. From our music to, like, TV shows, even the archetypes and stereotypes that they keep throwing at people, it's old shit that's evolved in real society, but in your media, they keep throwing that shit at you. Even in games. When I was talking about the racism aspect in games, people still argued the point. No, that's not true. You're looking for racism. See, when you're privileged, you don't realize that people...
When race isn't a factor to you, you don't realize.
Yeah, exactly.
When there's something racist being thrown at you.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a level of privilege that certain people are allowed to have where they don't deal with certain things. You know what I mean? Because if you were rich and black or rich and Asian, certain people won't say certain stuff to you that, like, us regular middle class people, we hear back and forth in our workplaces and the places we hang out. You know what I mean? Like, there's a level of respect you get by your privilege, your level of privilege. And people don't understand that, like, sometimes with race, your financial standing is a level of privilege. Sometimes with sex, being a male is sometimes a level of privilege in comparison to being a female, because there's a lot of shit we don't ever hear that females do hear. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's levels of privilege, and people don't realize this shit, you know? Because I guarantee you, a bunch of people are going to get on here in the comments, and they're going to say, he didn't really say anything fucked up. They call people all kinds of shit at tournaments and at, you know, arcades. It's perfectly fine. It's part of the culture. And he says that shit in here, too. It's not part of the culture. Being ignorant is not part of the... I guess it's part of American culture to be ignorant. But, you know, if you actually use your brain... being ignorant and being disrespectful is not part of our fucking culture. And I think that's a lame excuse for his behavior. It's a lame excuse for people in the tournament scene's behavior. And it's just lame, period. You know,
even during, like, I watched some of the streams when people were playing, because they had the guy from the, Filthy Rich, who's head of the Namco community or whatever. He was down there, and he was like, part of the. He was one of the challenges, basically. Like, they all had to fight him, and when they're all playing, you don't see anybody trash talking. You don't see anybody like talking smack or anything. It's all handled with a level of respect. Even after, somebody wins, they at least, maybe they give a handshake or a pound or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all respect. So, it's just, even on this guy's own show, he's like,
contradicting.
The show itself is contradicting everything this guy is saying.
Yep. But that's how it usually is with these cats, man. It's like you get in a position where the world is watching you, or a huge group of people are watching you. You're on center stage, and this is what you choose to do with it. Practically nothing. You know what I mean? Nothing of merit. You just make a fool of yourself. And then you try to pull all of the fighting game community down with you. Even though a lot of these cats, I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of assholes online. There's a lot of assholes that because you can't see them face to face, they feel like, hey, I can call you whatever the fuck I want and I'll get away with it too. But if we were in the same arcade together face to face, and I've seen this shit because I grew up playing in the arcades, the same kind of cats that do this shit now, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when they were a little bit younger, they definitely wouldn't have said that shit to your face. You know, when you put your quarter up on the screen and they put theirs on the screen and you two come up against each other, there was a level of like respect, or at least like healthy fear, because you're like, yo, if I'm fighting up against a 6'5", 200 plus pound black guy and I'm like 95 pounds soaking wet, I'm not going to say some shit to incur this motherfucker's wrath because he will pound the shit out of you. It's not going to be cool. But like online, that doesn't exist anymore, It's desocialization on a small level. Actually, it's getting to a big level. People don't know how to act when they're in a room with actual human beings, and it's sad, And like, I could break this down on a psychological level, but the majority, there's a lot of people that won't get where I'm going. So
or they'll just want to dispute for the sake of disputing.
Yeah, I had that happen too. I've had a lot of this shit happen. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave it simple, and, I'm not going to bring my work into this. Because, It makes too sense, and it makes too much sense, and it's so much textbook, some of these behaviors. People just need to grow the fuck up. It's simple. Grow up. You can't act like that forever. And if you think you can, more power to you. Go ahead, do it. Get away with it.
Well, that's why I say there's no such thing as an adult. Like, there's just full-grown sexually mature people, because there's so. Because like, I've been to places and I've worked at places where people are like, they're like in their middle age to like almost AARP level, and they're acting like school kids, like writing shit on the bathroom stalls, like, for a good time, call Susie. I'm like, how old are you, man? You're like about to retire, and you guys are still doing this?
Glorio.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, so the gaming community is a lot like some of these old people too.
It is. I know, and for the most part,
the sad part is they're all older.
Yeah. It's fucked up. It's really fucked up, And then you have like younger gamers that come into it and they already develop this attitude way before they should have come to that conclusion. They think in order to survive, you have to adapt. So you have to act like the majority.
Else, yeah.
And, people won't admit it. They'll complain about it, but it's the truth. It's that Groupthink. Everybody sees what everyone else is doing. You're a part of the group. So in order for you not to make waves, you do what the group does. It's like, it's a fact of and a portion of everyday life that so many people fall. They don't want to make waves. They don't want to be an individual. They would rather just give up their individuality to do all the shit that the mainstream is doing, even the ignorant shit. And that's a shame. People need to be a little bit more stronger in their own character and stop doing this dumb shit. This dude's fucking comments, like, if he was that sweet, because he's okay at Tekken, but he sucks at Street Fighter. And even amongst the better Tekken players, dude gets stomped. Almost every time I see him kind of move away, or I've seen him kind of move away from just the generic players here in the US, he always gets stomped. Like, he gets his ass handed to him. I mean, he'll get in some good things, but he gets his ass handed to him. But for him to be making this big of a stink towards his own teammates representing Tekken, like
just the scene in general,
and then and then pulling the whole scene into it. Like, I'm not even a part of this shit anymore, and it bothers me because there was a point in time where I exclusively only played fighting games. So it's like, to hear that this is what it is now, I'm like, man, get out of here. And I know there's people out there that feel me, because when I was reading the comments on the Giant Bomb website and on Kotaku, a lot of people were giving him shit for his actions because they're saying, yo, that's him. That's not all of us.
Yeah.
And it's fucked up that this is the label that forever is going to be on everybody until they change these things, Until, I guess, they kept on comparing it to, like, StarCraft, I think it was.
Yeah, well, he was
saying, like, if you take away these things, then you end up with StarCraft. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't get that at all. I mean, I guess because, and even they were even saying, if you watch the video, the actual video, and you listen to the conversation, they even say a lot of that trash talking and, some of that sexism goes on even in the StarCraft community.
Yeah. But they say not as much.
But it's not as much.
Not nearly as much. And he tried to say because there's more money spent on StarCraft than Street Fighter, and that's bullshit.
Yeah, because I mean, there's crappy I'm sure there's crappy tournaments.
There's crappy
overseas
tournaments for
in like Japan or the UK or whatever, and I can almost guarantee you they don't act like that over there.
Exactly.
Without me ever having to have actually been there, I can put money down that they don't act like that.
Yeah, it's true, because it's only
America. And the guy was like, well, we can say what we want. We live in America. This isn't Korea. Yeah, that's true. And
but it doesn't
you shouldn't have to censor. You shouldn't have to censor yourself. I don't ever want to see anybody be censored, but I also don't want to see people being discriminated against.
Yeah, it's not cool.
And the guy being Middle Eastern of all things should totally understand this.
Yeah,
with the way that things have been lately with the war and everything else that's been going on with politics and whatnot. So for him, I mean, I don't know this. Maybe the guy is
he's overcompensating.
He's too American for his own good. He's forgotten where he's come from or something.
Like a lot of people, that's the way it is. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they have that background, but they ignore it so that they can fit in out here. So maybe it's worked for him thus far.
Yeah, even one of the videos he was saying when they did this like a little interview profile, and he was talking about the people on his team, and he was saying that. Because the one girl on his team is white, and he brought up the fact that she was a white woman, and that's gonna give her some advantage in the tournament. I'm like, really?
What the fuck?
I've stopped white people in playing the video games.
Yeah.
I didn't see their whiteness give them any advantage over me while I'm beating them up on the stick.
Yeah, I don't know what.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know where he was. Maybe he was trying to be funny, but it just came off as like
racist.
That was like worse than toilet humor to me.
Yeah, it's racist as heck. God, yeah, dude they need to get him out of there for real. Honestly, that's how I feel about it. If we were in an arcade and he didn't have his show, and all the steam being blown up his ass that he actually is something, and we were in an arcade and we played against one another, he would keep those comments to his fucking self. He wouldn't say shit like that to either one of us or a multitude of people out there. You know what I mean? Because he knows better. You know what I mean? Back in Jersey, we would have folded his ass up right outside of the arcade and went back in and continued playing fucking Third Strike or Tekken or whatever. So it's like one of those things where I know this mentality comes from the fact that he knows he can get away with it because of the situation, And some of those arcades that he's at, he probably picks and chooses who he says that kind of shit to, because not everybody's girl will allow that shit, Not every girl coming in will
not
allow
every girlfriend's
kind of shit.
guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Not every guy's gonna let their girlfriend get talked to like that.
Exactly. So I don't know. Overall, I think people they need to fucking boycott anything with this motherfucker attached to it. Ignore his ass, or just don't pay attention to him, because dude is wasting a lot of time, space, money, and nothing really of substance is coming out of this motherfucker's mouth. And, if you're going to represent something, Capcom also, whenever I make fun of Capcom and I get on their case, people always want to defend and defend and defend and defend. And they show time and again they don't really give a shit about you guys. They don't give a shit about us. They give a shit about sales, which is why they made him apologize. Because they know people still are going to watch the show. They know they don't want to have to reshoot that whole show and start over.
Or they don't want to lose viewers or hurt their potential sales off the game based off that dude.
So they figure apologize. You'll clean shit up really nice. You'll wipe shit or sweep shit under the rug.
And they distance themselves from him because they were already like, they put out that little disclaimer, his views don't represent Capcom's views. That whole thing.
Of course. The shit's sad, man. It's really sad. But anyway, I think we talked long enough about this dude's bullshit. I hope that people seeing, all this shit, reading it, will kind of check themselves a little bit before they decide to go off and try to be all, hardcore ignorant online just because you're a little bit anonymous, Because you never know. One day, you could come face to face with the motherfucker that you called fake and gay or a bitch or a nigger or whatever, and that day might not be a good day for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be a really, really, really bad day for you, and it's not something that you want to have happen. I mean, I'm not saying everybody's gonna be like the one dude that was rapping him. People told him his videos sucked, and he was actually at a list, and he found them on Google, went to their houses to try to yell at them for telling him he sucked. I'm not saying everybody's gonna be that extreme, but I'm saying that fate is kind of weird like that. Shit can happen.
Karma's a bitch.
Yeah. So I don't know. Try to be a little bit above that shit. But anyway, that's it for us. You've been great.
Upgrade your gray matter because one day it may matter.
Peace outside, people.